Over the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had to pretend.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, the weather kind of nice outside. I come on out for a little bit.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Warm again.
I'm waiting for Reverend Jackson to turn us on to that meatloaf. They say he cut the onion so thin, man. It's literally cutting it so thin it melts the pan.
Yeah.
They say he cut it. He say that meatloaf off the chain. Say, man, he said, when he gets through, say you be biting your fingers.
I had it, Mr. Miller.
He was right.
Yeah.
Was it good?
Oh yes.
Yeah, he had to turn me on to that, Rev. Everybody that tasted except me.
I hadn't tasted it, so not everybody.
I ain't tasted neither. I heard about it.
Tasted it, and you and the super was down that day. Y'all just left early.
Hey, you should have put something up, cuz. You know how we do. You know how we do.
You didn't tell him before he left.
I didn't know he was cooking meatloaf. They say he make a mean meatloaf though. They say Rev can make a mean meatloaf now.
Yeah, I heard about it.
Yeah.
Don't believe everything you hear now.
I suggest we have a potluck for the next meeting. Everybody bring a plate.
Yeah.
It's my dish, and then we'll just, we'll have a meeting that way.
Yeah, well, when you having meetings like this, you don't have to worry about eating much.
True.
Unless you're gonna talk yourself into your appetite.
Good imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You been pretty busy, Mr. Miller?
Yeah, man. I jumped out of there early this morning, man. I jumped out of there about 1:45.
Oh man.
Yeah, jumped out of there early this morning, brother Darren. And man, I was at 4 o'clock. I was way over on Kirk, over in Lancaster.
Man.
Lancaster, yeah.
Yeah, I had a kind of long night, making them parts for the military and for the ventilators.
Oh, that's what y'all doing down there?
Yeah, we make them circuit boards and stuff. So, I mean, a lot that they put out. 6, 7
We're
days.
live. We're live now.
Yes.
All right. I can't start till Ms. Harrison says it's okay, though.
You got a few seconds.
Okay.
I told you, man, she a timekeeper now.
It is 6 o'clock, Mr. Miller.
I got 6 o'clock.
It's 6
All right.
o'clock.
I see 7 of us on the board, so it looks like we're all here at this time. I call the meeting the second ever virtual meeting, and thanks to Mr. Davis, School Board Cookout for the May 2020 meeting to order. Public notification. I see all of us on the board, so I note a quorum. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session. I think the only thing we've got is personnel. Was that correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Harrison.
I make a motion that we enter executive session for personnel matters.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I
Second that.
Is that Reverend? I'm giving
Jackson.
Okay, Reverend Jackson with the second.
Right.
All those in favor, remember how we did it last time? I'm gonna do it roll call, and I'm gonna do it as I see on the screen. Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Siebels,
yes.
Pastor Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
Yes,
Rick votes yes, so that's 7-0. We enter executive session not to exceed 6:30, but I don't think it's going to take nearly that long. All right, y'all have the call-in number, and just remember, it is executive session, so do not face the screen.
Welcome. Thank you for choosing freeconferencecall.com. You're helping people around
Okay, I see 7 pictures on the screen, so it looks like we have all made it back out of executive session. At this time, Chair will entertain a motion to exit executive session.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Harrison,
I make a motion, we exit executive session.
Second.
Mr. Chair, I second.
was that Mr. Davis that seconded?
Pastor
I did,
Jackson.
but
Reverend Jackson, okay. The audio broke up on, we'll give it to Reverend Jackson on the second. Roll call, Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Siebels,
Yes.
Pastor Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman.
Yes.
Rick votes yes, so that's 7-0. All right. Again, thank you all for being here in our second Zoom meeting. And quite frankly, it'll be fine with me if it's the last Zoom meeting we have, but we'll do what we need to do in June. And at this time, I'll turn it over to our secretary for the moment of silence.
Let us all pause for a moment of silence. Thank you.
All right, I like the bird chirping too. That just seems to add something to the meeting.
I don't know who chirping. Who bird is
That
chirping?
might be you reckon that's the chair?
That's at my house, man.
I think Daryl's at his cookout over there.
They
with the
smell
bird.
the ribs.
At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Harrison,
I make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
thank you. Don't jump all at once.
Henry Miller?
Mr. Miller, second.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Miller, second. Any discussion on this evening's agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote on the agenda. Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Siebels,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman.
Yes.
Rick votes yes. Agenda is approved 7-0. And now we're down to board minutes. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the April 21st, 2020 board meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Harrison,
the motion, we approve the board minutes from the April 21st regular call board meeting.
thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Reverend Jackson, I second.
Chair? Henry Miller?
Mr. Miller?
Yes, sir.
All right, it's seconded by Mr. Miller. Again, roll call, Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Siebels,
Yes.
Pastor Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman.
Abstain.
Very good. Frick votes yes. That's 6 in favor, 1 abstention. All right, now we're down to the superintendent's report.
Mr. Frick, members of the board, great seeing you today. The item that has been probably most discussed over the last week or so has been around graduation ceremonies. That's probably what you see consistently when you look at the local news. I wanted to share our plans relative to graduation ceremonies. The plan is to have a ceremony on June 6th, which was already the scheduled date. We plan to have it at the Fairfield Central High School football stadium, as was previously planned. A few changes as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. We will need to recognize and honor our social distancing protocols established by the CDC and DHEC. As a result, we will have to implement sanitation stations at several locations throughout the stadium. In addition, we are going to ask all guests to wear face coverings For those who don't have face coverings, we will provide face coverings for them. In addition to guests, we will provide face coverings for graduates also. And so people have asked how strictly will you enforce the wearing of face coverings? And my response has been, we will ask people to wear them. However, we don't plan to dismiss anyone as a function of not wearing their face coverings. However, we will be firm as it relates to where they sit in the stadium. DHEC guidelines require that we have them sitting 6 feet apart. Our plan is to set up actual locations throughout the stadium so individuals will know where they are allowed to be seated. And if they sit outside of those designated areas, we will have to require that they sit in a dedicated location. We are going to allow each graduate to invite 2 guests. That is in line with the guidance provided by the State Department of Education. You probably have heard lots from other districts in terms of what they are doing relative to the number of guests that have been allowed to attend. For the most part, most of the Midlands districts are following the guidance from the State Department of Education and allowing graduates to invite 2 guests. There are a couple of exceptions to that where some districts around the Columbia area have deviated from the guidance from the State Department. The way the stadium will be set up is we will have the 2 guests seated side by side, and then there will be 6 feet of distance between them and the next 2 guests. So the plan is not to have 6 feet from every single individual, but 6 feet from every pair of guests, assuming that the 2 guests potentially will be coming out the same household or people who are very familiar with one another. We will not allow any kind of congregation before the graduation ceremony or after this graduation ceremony in adherence to social distancing protocol. That will be something that we really have to work to enforce. Traditionally, people kind of stayed around and taking pictures and congregated and mingled. After this graduation, we are going to have to insist that they leave the premises and then they can move forward with any kind of picture taking and mingling and congratulatory gatherings after they leave the campus. Are there any questions about the graduation ceremony?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Harris.
Dr. Green, will there be any extra law enforcement there that will enforce that, after graduation that they leave if they started to congregate around?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Harrison, very good question. Yeah, we're going to have some additional law enforcement, but I think to enforce the seating in the stadium, in addition to enforcing that people don't congregate before the graduation ceremony and after the graduation ceremony. So when they come, we're going to ask them to, leave their cars, go to the stadium, have a seat. Once it's over, we're going to ask that they go back to the cars and be dismissed. And one thing that I failed to mention, we will be streaming the service live for individuals who want to watch the service outside of the 2 guests that each graduate is allowed to invite.
Paula Hartman.
Yes, ma'am.
To ask, what about, is there space enough to space us out there or not, or what?
Yeah, that's a good question, Ms. Hartman. So as it relates to board members and district staff, they will be spaced 6 feet apart as well. Graduates will be spaced 6 feet apart. So we will adhere to social distancing protocol, not only with guests, but with graduates, board members, staff. We will adhere to social distancing protocols across the board for everyone who's present.
Henry Miller, Dr. Green.
Yes.
Who it froze up? Yeah.
I chimed in before Mr. Miller, but let him go on and I'll ask.
No, sir. No, sir. You're older than me.
Okay,
Go
Dr.
ahead,
Green,
Stephen.
what about the printed programs? Has decision been made on whether they'll have printed programs or not?
Yes, sir, Mr. Siebels. We will have printed programs. Actually, Dr. Swilly has already been in contact with the vendor that handles that for her. I think she may have already received a copy of a tentative program, so there will be printed programs as well.
Whoever was next, I think Mr. Miller.
All right, Henry Miller, Dr. Green, what time? I heard everything, but I didn't hear time.
Yeah. So our time will be the same as was planned, which is 8 o'clock. And so our plan is to start at 8 o'clock, Mr. Miller, and then hopefully by 9 o'clock, we'll be done. Generally, it takes about an hour. I hope that it doesn't take much more than an hour this year, even though we'll be adhering to social distancing protocols.
That's 8 a.m., right?
That's 8 a.m.
Early. All right. Anybody else got any questions on that? Are we still going to be up on the diet like we usually are, just spaced apart?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mr. Frick. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to have all of the board members and staff on the stage as a function of the social distancing protocol. We will very likely, and we'll just have to see how it spaces out. We'll very likely need to have some people on the field in addition to the stage. I'm not sure exactly how that'll be positioned, but just thinking about the size of the stage and the number of people who historically have been placed on the stage, I doubt very seriously we'll be able to fit everyone on the stage. So we'll probably have to have some on the field also.
Mr. Frick,
Yes, sir.
when the speeches are being given, will the mask still be on, or are they going to take them off?
Very good question, Pastor Jackson. Even though we are going to provide face coverings, and Dr. Swilly has had someone to make some keepsakes, if you will, for all of her graduates with some Fairfield Central High School emblems on it. I don't think they'll wear face coverings during their speeches. Some of the graduates may elect not to wear face coverings. As I said, we will provide those face coverings, but we won't mandate that they wear them the entire time.
Dr. Green, got a quick
Yes,
question.
sir.
Now with this coronavirus, I'm assuming that the graduates already be seated instead of marching in.
A good question. No, so what our plan is, Mr. Davis, is we're going to have chairs set up by the old band practice field, old soccer area by the back by the softball field. We'll have a set of chairs set up there, 6 feet apart. And as graduates enter the stage, as graduates arrive, we're going to ask them to report to their identified seats. All right. Once all the graduates are seating, we'll have them stand up and then march in, adhering to social distancing protocols as well. So they won't necessarily need to congregate as they come to the stadium. We'll ask them to have a seat. Once all the graduates are seated, we'll have them stand up, and they'll be seated in the same manner that they're seated inside the stadium. So they still will march in the stadium.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Frick.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Green, how do you plan to handle the time-honored tradition, walking across the stage with your diploma and shaking hands with everybody up there?
Yeah, so Mr. Siebels, our plan is to have them walk across the stage, to have Dr. Swilly hand them a diploma, but we will skip any handshaking as a function of the COVID-19 crisis.
Oh, okay.
Chair Frick.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, if the students choose not to, they're doing their presentation as far as their speaking, are we gonna have wipes there, them to wipe the speaker, you know, for the one behind them after they finish? Or wipe it before they start, one way, if they choose not to use the mask?
So Ms. Hartman, your question is, will we try and sanitize the mic between speeches? Is that your question?
Yes, sir, especially if they don't use the mask.
Okay. That's something I didn't consider, Ms. Hartman, but that's something that we'll take a look at as well.
I thought that would be a safety for them also. Thank you.
So Ms. Hartman, my thinking is that no one should touch the mic. You know, we do outdoor services at my church, and so one thing that we try to enforce, so there are no issues with any kind of transferring of any bacteria or viruses, is once you speak to the mic, you shouldn't touch the mic. And so if no one is touching the mic, hopefully that alleviates any concerns. But nonetheless, we'll explore sanitizing the mic in between speeches as well.
Dr. Green.
Yes, sir.
I think that's a good idea to sanitize. Right.
Okay.
I do.
I mean, somebody might have, you know, they do it on purpose, you know, as far as when they talk, they might have some type of wetness come from their mouth or something, you know, and you just don't know, you know.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll try to put something in place to address that as well.
Dr. Green.
Yes, sir.
Reverend Jackson here. They're going to wear face coverings, and that's voluntary. What about, will they have any hand coverings and any gloves?
No, sir. So we aren't going to. You're talking about graduates or guests?
Well, I was talking about graduates and the graduate people, you know, the all of us.
So, Pastor Jackson, there was no plan of requiring or asking or providing gloves to graduates and guests or staff or board members. Obviously, if that's a desire of the board, that's something that we can explore, but that was not in our initial plan.
Well, the reason I asked it, when she asked the question about touching the mic, if they were wearing gloves or something, maybe that, you know, would alleviate some of that anxiety.
All right. Do we have any more questions on graduation?
Okay.
Here none. We'll move on. Yeah.
All righty. The other item on the superintendent's report is summer work hours. We have implemented summer work hours over the last several years. Summer work hours are from 7 to 5:30 Monday through Thursday. As a function, the district offices and schools are not open on Friday. So I bring that to the board for your approval.
Okay, so that is an action item. We do need to have a motion on that. So Chair, entertain a motion in regards to adopting the summer work hours.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Harrison.
I make a motion, we accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the district summer work hours from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, beginning on Monday, June 15th, 2020, and concluding on Friday, August 7th, 2020.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Reverend Jackson.
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been seconded by Reverend Jackson. Any discussion on the work hours?
Yeah, Mr. Frick,
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Green. So I assume that we are going back full force working, June 15th. So are we doing anything, according to the CDC guidelines to like really clean the schools? I know that our janitors probably can't handle that level of cleaning. So is anything in place that we're gonna do to go in and fully clean the schools by the CDC guidelines?
Yeah, so a couple of points there, Ms. Harrison. We will not require that everyone report to work as we have previously. And so the fact that we're implementing summer work hours doesn't mean that we are not going to encourage people who can continue to work from home to continue to work from home.
Okay.
I think that is just good practice, particularly as we kind of transition in this kind of, COVID-19 era, not 100% sure about how things are going. We understand that we are moving back, hopefully by August, to a point where we would be full-fledged. But we'll still have people who are working from home and not necessarily reporting every day. As it relates to sanitizing the school, I was just in conversation with Mr. J. Christie today about some electrostatic equipment that we're purchasing for all of our facilities. There was some questions about whether we would bring in an outside company to do some sanitation. There are some benefits to that, but the downside is once you bring someone to do some sanitation, then it's a one-shot deal. I would prefer that we buy some equipment where we could sanitize ourselves on a consistent basis. And so we're looking at some equipment where we can go out and do some electrostatic sanitation throughout all of our facilities. And so that's a very good point. We are trying to put some things in place where we can do that periodically.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Green.
Yes, sir.
Henry Miller. So I guess the next question is, since we're doing this, are we doing summer school?
That's a very good question, Mr. Miller. So the answer is no, we aren't doing summer school. The State Department is having some conversations about doing some literacy and math remedial camps a little later on in the summer. In terms of when that will start, they're still working through that. I'm not sure that we are at a point that we could reopen the schools and have kids come in to the extent that we have pre-COVID-19. Hopefully, we'll get to that point a little later on in the summer. So my guess, Mr. Miller, is probably late July, early August, we'll probably be at a point where we can have face-to-face instruction with a substantial number of students.
Well, I was talking about that too, but I was talking about maybe virtual. Are all our kids going to pass, or do we have some kids that maybe struggling, and maybe through virtual school they can catch up somewhat?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I'll tell you is we won't have anyone who's retained who wasn't on a trajectory of being retained prior to COVID-19. And so COVID-19 will not be the reason that anyone is retained. Now, let's just hypothetically speaking, let's say we have someone who had not been meeting standard first 9 weeks, second 9 week, third 9 week, fourth 9 week, then that's someone who is already on a trajectory for being retained. Another example where you've had someone who had been doing relatively well first 9 weeks, second 9 week, COVID-19 crisis came at the end of the third 9 weeks. And so we are probably into our 8th week of distance learning. If the only issues they've been experiencing have been during the COVID-19 crisis, this is not an individual who would be identified for retention. As it relates to doing summer school in a virtual environment, there are some questions about the effectiveness of a virtual environment for some of your most struggling learners. Quite honestly, we question whether that can be effective for that population of student. Therefore, we would prefer to do that in a face-to-face setting. Now, a virtual environment can work well for lots of categories of students, but students who historically have experienced lots of academic struggles, virtual environments generally don't do well. So we would be very hesitant to try to implement a summer school in a virtual environment.
All right. Ms. Frick.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Green, there's been a lot of ins and outs and information and misinformation and so forth, and dates here and dates there. Has the State Department gotten together with the superintendents and come up with the actual start date?
No, sir. And so you probably have heard that Superintendent Spearman has, she has convened a Accelerate Ed Committee. I think that's what they're titled. And they're coming up with recommendations and ideas about things we need to put in place and protocols to be prepared to return in the fall. They are still meeting. As a matter of fact, Ms. Jefferson, our State Teacher of the Year, is a member of that committee. And so they're still working through those recommendations, Pastor Jackson. You know, I say that the plan is to return in the fall. That has not been fully determined as of yet. And even if we do return in the fall, it's not been fully determined what those protocols will be to ensure that all students and staff are safe and not at risk of contracting the virus. So they are still exploring these ideas, Pastor Jackson.
Yeah, because I know I hear about the possibility of late July start to help make up for some of this. And yeah, I was just wondering if anybody has settled in, because they tell you one thing today and half hour later they tell you something different.
And so, you know, Pastor Jackson, there are lots of proposals and ideas out there. No one has made any firm decisions as of yet. Obviously, the facts on the ground will influence that. The infection rates, the transmission rate,
Right.
Things could very well change from CDC. Things could change from DHEC. So right now, we're still trying to figure out what is the best solution, what is the best path moving forward.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Any other questions on the work hours? All right. Hearing none, we'll move to a vote on the summer work hours. Some of y'all have jumped off the screen, so I'm gonna move around a little bit, but Ms. Harrison's still up first. Ms. Harrison.
Yes.
Mr. Siebels,
Yes.
Reverend Jackson,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
I think that's everybody but me. Frick votes yes, so 7-0.
Mr. Frick,
Yes, ma'am.
if I can ask a question on the graduation, do we have a certain place we need to park?
We've not figured that out yet, Ms. Hartman. There will be some instructions as relates to parking at a little later point.
Okay.
All right. I think that covers the superintendent's report. We'll now move to curriculum and instruction.
Good afternoon, Chairman Frick, members of the board, and Dr. Green. For your approval are the annual update to the district strategic plan, along with the school renewal plans for the 2020-2021 academic school year for each of our schools. These updates reflect changes to the needs assessment, which include the data from the 2019 report card, along with updated interim and performance goals to include 2 new REAP 180 goals added to the district strategic plan.
Thank you, ma'am. Chairman, entertain a motion in regards to the district strategic plan and school renewal plan updates for the 2020-2021 year.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we accept the superintendent recommendation to approve the district strategic plan and school renewal plan annual updates 2020, 2021.
Is there a second?
Pastor Jackson, I second.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion on the renewal plans? Hearing none, we'll move to, were you, somebody moved. I'm just going by body movement. Anybody got any questions? I don't want to cut it off. Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Frick.
Was that
Mr. Frick,
Yes, ma'am.
can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. I thought you were trying to ask a question. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. I'm assuming that this has been reviewed by the normal people. Working? Is this being reviewed, or we just putting down what we had down fast? Can you
No,
hear
I
me?
think they were good and updated accordingly.
So the ones who normally review it has been reviewed it.
Yeah,
The ones that
I believe it's reviewed by curriculum instruction, and it's I think given to the principals, and then the principal passes it on to the district office.
Okay, so we're following the regular procedure, what I'm asking.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any further questions on it? I'm not trying to cut anybody off. Just it kind of cut out there. All right, let's go back. Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Siebels?
Yes.
Reverend Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Hartman?
Yes.
Was that yes?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Rick votes yes. I believe we've got 7-0 on that. And on to operations and finance. I hope your audio don't cut out this time.
I hope not too. Good evening. Under operations and finance this evening, we have two items. The first item is we have two resolutions for our FY 2021 budget. And the superintendent recommends approval of a continuing budget resolution to fund the FY 2021 operations based on the approved FY 20 budget. And the second resolution, he recommends approval of an FY 21 budget millage resolution to fund the district's operations based on 203.1 mil.
All right. I really don't see any reason why we couldn't do those in one motion if that's what the board wanted to do. They are two separate resolutions, but I think if you wanted to combine them, I think that would work.
Okay. Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
make the recommendation, we approve the continuing budget resolution to fund FY 21 operations based on the approved FY 20 budget and approval of a FY 21 budget millage resolution to fund operations based on 203.1 mils.
Was that a second?
Yes, second it. Yeah, Mr. Frick.
That's Mr. Davis, right? I'm just
Yes, sir.
cutting out on my end. My internet, I'm running out of internet over here. I need more. All right. Any discussion on these, the resolution and the millage? Just to clarify, Mr. Robinson, what that means is we are just going to operate with the budget that we had from last year. It's the same millage, so no taxing, nothing changes. And then I guess we're going to figure out where we are when the legislature finally passes a budget instead of a continuing resolution, hopefully in September.
That is correct. Same millage that we have this year for operations. And we will have to, of course, amend our budget, make changes once the legislature approves a budget for the fiscal year in the fall.
Okay. Any other questions on the budget or the continuing resolution?
Mr. Frick.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Mr. Frick, you answered my question. Was that was the state going to change? And so that was my question. And so it didn't change. So I'm good.
All right. Very good. Very good. Anybody else?
Can you hear me?
Are you asking? I can't hear you, Ms. Hartman, but it looks like you're asking a question.
Yes, what I want to ask was, you made reference to not raising the salaries until, and the step rate until the state does their budget. Is that correct?
That is correct, Ms. Hartman. Right now, we don't know what the state mandated teacher increase will be. And as a result, because of that, and we also don't know what funding will accompany that, it would just be pointless to try to make any changes at the time. So we're going to wait until the state actually provides guidance on what the teacher raises will be, and at that time, we'll take action and adjust accordingly.
Well, I've got a concern also in that same line is, you know, we budgeted the bonuses for everybody. And that was budgeted last year. So we're fixing to pass a budget that includes that, because we're
Yes.
including that last year, correct?
Yes, the bonus would be included as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like we should not have that included as well until we know what the standing of all this issues, because we've already been told that we're going to, is it correct, $2.7 million that we're going to lose from the nuclear plant from that budget. And so we have that, and then we don't know what the result of this decline of businesses can affect taxes, right?
Ms. Hartman, at this time, you're correct. We don't know. The plan right now is just to have a budget to begin the year. So we're sticking with the budget we currently have, and we're going to have to make a reassessment once the state provides us with their funding and their plan for next year. So that's the reason why we're maintaining the budget as it is without making any changes. There are a lot of things that could change between now and then, but we have to have a budget to rely upon to start the year.
Well, I agree with that, but then that bonus should be, I think, re-looked at the end of the year. I mean, I'm sorry, when we re-look at it. Because that's something that if we have the money, then, you know, there's no problem. But if we don't, that might be an issue.
So Ms. Hartman, I'll respond. As it relates to rather we will have the money to fund the bonuses, we know we will have the money to fund the bonuses because we have a pretty substantial fund balance. And so even if we had to pull money from the fund balance, we have the wherewithal to fund the bonuses. And so that's why it is our recommendation that we leave that in place for another year.
Well, I don't think the fund balance, because if we keep using fund balance, eventually it won't be there. I think we need to be having it in our budget available before we suggest something like that. We shouldn't be bringing that money from the fund balance.
Ms. Hartman, my response to that would be we have been contributing money to the fund balance virtually every year that I've been here. And so
I understand that.
Yeah, so, you know, when you said that if we continue to pull money from the fund balance, we've not done that. And this is my 8th year here. The whole purpose of having a substantial fund balance is in times where there are budget shortfalls, you can pull from the fund balance. So this has not been a practice where we pull from the fund balance every year. We've never done it. And so this is exactly why you have a substantial fund balance, so you could address these times where you have some budget shortfalls.
Right.
The fund balance is what now?
I think it's 50.
You're asking about the amount?
Yes, I think
Yes,
that's what she's.
It's in excess of $14 million.
And quite frankly, what I've been reading from other districts around the state, everybody's going to be dipping into the fund balance this year. I mean, this is not a situation to us. It's not a unique situation to school districts. It's not a unique situation to the state. I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen, and the only way you can deal with it is pass a continuing resolution and hope you can figure it out. I mean, the target right now, I think, is September, and I hope that's correct, but I don't even know by September where we are. But that's the goal, and you got to have something to start FY 2021, and that's what we're doing here. Just saying we'll go with what we got.
Well, I agree with what you're
That's what
saying as
everybody
far as
else is.
go with what you got, but I just feel like that's something we should set aside and say that we'd relook at this bonus after we start looking at it again.
Well, Ms. Hartman, obviously that's not the recommendation from the administration. Our recommendation is that we move forward with the original budget from
Well, I
last
make
year.
I make a motion to do that.
Well, no, we got a motion and a second on the floor right now. We got to vote on that.
On what?
We motioned and seconded to approve the resolution as it is. And understand, I mean, this is not the final budget. I mean, once we know what's going on statewide, then we too are going to have a reassessment. And that would be the point in time that we would look to see exactly what your concern is. Any other questions? All right. Hearing none, it's been motioned and seconded to approve the resolutions. I will go, as I see on the board again. Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Siebels?
Yes.
Reverend Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Hartman?
No.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Rick votes yes. That's 6 in favor, 1 negative. Thank you.
I want to put it on the record. The reason I voted against it was that I feel like we need to take that out and look at it as we're doing it, not have it automatically where people think it's going to automatically be in there, and maybe we can't do it. And that's the concern that I have. Thank you.
Your objection is noted. Thank you, ma'am. All right. I think we're now down to the finance report.
Yes, in the board packet, you have the finance report for a board review for the month of April 2020.
Any questions on the April finance report? All right. Hearing none on that, we'll move on to human resources, unless that was a question. Didn't hear one. Okay. Human resources.
Good evening, Chairman Frick and members of the board. For your approval this evening, the superintendent has 2 items on certified resignations and terminations, where the superintendent recommends the board approve certified resignations and terminations for current staff members who will not return after the conclusion of the 2019-2020 academic year. This is presented to you in Exhibit 1.
Thank you, Chair. Entertain a motion in regard to certified resignation terminations in Exhibit 1.
Mr. Chair,
Harrison.
make a motion, we accept the superintendent recommendation to approve certified resignation terminations for current staff members who will not return after the conclusion of the 2019-20 academic year, Exhibit 1.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I second the motion.
Thank you. That's Reverend Jackson on the second. Of course, this is human resources, so there's no discussion on this. All those in, we'll do the roll call. Sorry. I'm going back to the old ways. Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Siebels?
Yes.
Reverend Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Hartman?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Rick votes yes, 7-0. Thank you.
Item 2, certified recommendations. In Exhibits 2A and 2B, the superintendent recommends the board approve certified professional educators for academic year 2020-2021.
Chair will entertain a motion in regard to certified recommendations. I don't see any reason why we can't combine these in Exhibit 2A and 2B.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I make
Yes,
a
ma'am,
motion.
Ms. Harris.
I make a motion, we accept the superintendent recommendation to approve certified professional educators for academic year 2020-21, Exhibit 2A, Exhibit 2B.
I second.
Thank you. That's Mr. Davis on the second. Again, this is human resources, so no discussion. All those in favor of approving certified recommendations in Exhibit 2A, 2B. Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Siebels,
Yes.
Reverend Jackson,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
Yes.
Mr. Miller, sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Rick votes yes. So that is 7-0. I don't have any updates really to say. Again, I want to thank our clerk and IT staff for getting this all together and making sure that it runs as smoothly as it did. Again, I want to thank everybody in the district, teacher, staff, everybody for doing what you do to get us through this weird time that we're in. And hopefully we can see each other again in June. I did want to ask Mr. Davis, how are the ribs? They doing okay?
Hey, I'm ready to get into them now.
Man, I hear them birds chirping. Them birds must be them birds been chirping the whole meeting.
They have. They're excited.
Eating your
They want
food
some
up.
ribs.
Might be somebody's chair.
Hey,
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I
Chairman
make
Frick,
a motion, we adjourn.
Aye.
Is there a second on that?
I second.
All right. Ms. Harrison, yay or nay?
Yes.
Mr. Sievels,
Yay.
Reverend Jackson,
Yeah.
Mr. Harmon,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Davis, I know what your vote is, but what is it?
Yes.
Rick votes yes. Thank y'all. We'll see you next month.
All right.
Everybody be safe.
You too.
Thank you.